When basketball legend Michael Jordan was barred from entering one of America's premier television studios, no one could have foreseen that his response would forever alter not only his own life, but the entirety of the American television industry. This is the story of how a closed door led to the creation of the most revolutionary movement the media has ever witnessed. The sleek black SUV purred to a halt in front of the imposing glass and steel edifice of the Metro Morning Show, nestled in the heart of Manhattan. Michael Jordan emerged from the vehicle, adjusting his impeccably tailored suit, followed by his niece, Quinn Sullivan, a bright-eyed 19-year-old brimming with curiosity. "Uncle Mike, I still can't believe you brought me to your first TV interview in years," Quinn exclaimed, gazing at the frenetic city life unfolding beyond the building's mirrored windows. Jordan offered a wry smile, straightening his tie. "Someone's got to keep me grounded, Quinn. Besides, you've always wanted to see how a TV studio really works." They proceeded towards the main entrance, where a uniformed security guard greeted them with professional courtesy. The lobby was breathtaking, boasting soaring ceilings, polished marble floors, and colossal screens showcasing clips from the network's most popular programs. Walls adorned with celebrity photographs chronicled decades of memorable interviews. At the reception desk, a young, red-haired assistant greeted them with a subtly nervous smile. "Mr. Jordan, I'm Ashley, the production assistant. Mr. Scott is expecting you on the 10th floor." The elevator whisked them upward with remarkable speed, and Quinn, captivated, peered through the glass doors at the various departments: the newsroom, the editing suites, the makeup artistry stations. The hum of television production was palpable. "It's even more impressive than I imagined," she whispered. As the elevator doors glided open onto the 10th floor, they were met by an elegant corridor carpeted in deep navy blue, its walls lined with accolades and certifications. Ashley guided them to a plush waiting area. "Mr. Scott will be with you momentarily," she announced, but there was an undercurrent of tension in her voice that Quinn didn't miss. 15 minutes elapsed, then 20. Quinn observed her uncle, usually a paragon of patience, begin to check his watch with increasing frequency. Finally, the double doors swung open, and a man appearing to be in his mid-40s stepped out. Grayson Scott was tall, with immaculately coiffed silver hair and expensive suits, but there was a stiffness in his bearing that immediately engendered an uncomfortable atmosphere. "Mr. Jordan," Grayson said, not extending a hand, "I'm afraid we have a bit of a problem." Jordan raised an eyebrow, maintaining his composure. "What sort of problem, Mr. Scott?" Grayson glanced around nervously, as if checking who else might be privy to their conversation. "Well, following a more thorough review with our editorial team, we've determined that your presence doesn't quite align with the current format of our program. Matters of audience targeting." The ensuing silence was deafening. Quinn felt a flush creep up her neck, but Jordan remained placid. "Audience targeting?" Jordan repeated slowly. "Could you elaborate on what precisely that entails?" Grayson shifted his gaze, clearly discomfited. "Our program caters to a very specific demographic, and frankly, we don't feel it would be appropriate at this juncture." "Appropriate?" Quinn couldn't contain herself. "You are speaking with Michael Jordan." "The Michael Jordan." "Quinn." Jordan placed a calming hand on his niece's shoulder, but his eyes remained fixed on Grayson. "Mr. Scott, this interview was scheduled 3 weeks ago. My representatives confirmed all particulars yesterday." Grayson began to visibly perspire. "Yes, well, things have evolved. Executive decisions, you understand. Matters beyond my purview." But Jordan had enough experience reading people to discern that something was amiss. Grayson's nervousness went beyond mere awkwardness. There was a desperation in his eyes. "I see," Jordan said calmly, "and I presume there's nothing we can do to rectify this situation." "Regrettably, no. Perhaps at another time, when circumstances are more amenable." As he spoke, Ashley appeared in the corridor, clearly flustered. "Mr. Scott, we urgently need to discuss—" She stopped abruptly upon seeing Jordan and Quinn. "My apologies, I wasn't aware there were guests." Grayson visibly paled. "Ashley, now is not the time. But sir, it's about the contracts expiring today and the sponsors who—" "Ashley," Grayson practically barked, then quickly regained his composure. Kindly excuse yourselves, please. This meeting is concluded. Jordan observed the entire exchange with mounting interest. Something was most certainly not right. Quinn also sensed the tension, noting how other employees scurried down the hallway, avoiding eye contact. Of course, Mr. Scott, Jordan said, rising to his feet. Thank you for your time. As they walked back to the elevator, Quinn couldn't contain her indignation. Uncle Mike, that was completely unacceptable. You can't let this slide. Jordan remained pensive as the elevator doors closed. I don't intend to let it slide, Quinn. But there's something else going on here. Did you see how desperate that assistant was to speak with him? And the way he got flustered? What do you mean? Sometimes when people act irrationally, it's not just out of malice. It can be out of fear. As they exited the elevator on the ground floor, Jordan paused. Quinn, how about you take a walk around the studio while I make some calls? Try to talk to some of the employees. Sometimes the people who actually do the work know things the executives would rather keep hidden. Quinn smiled, understanding her uncle had something in mind. You want me to be your spy? I prefer to call it field research. Jordan grinned back. Meet me in the lobby in an hour. Quinn wandered the studio hallways with the natural curiosity of a 19-year-old interested in media. She had studied communications in college and always dreamed of working in television, so the opportunity to explore a real studio was thrilling, even under these circumstances. On the third floor, she found the editing suite, where several young people worked at state-of-the-art computers. An Asian woman, about 25, was alone at one of the stations, clearly stressed. Excuse me, Quinn said politely. I'm Quinn, Michael Jordan's niece. May I ask what you're working on? The young woman looked up, surprised. Oh, you're related to Michael Jordan. I'm Maya Chen, a junior editor. She hesitated. I didn't know he was in the building today. He was, but the interview was canceled at the last minute. Quinn moved closer. May I ask, what's it like working here? Maya glanced around nervously before answering. It's complicated. She lowered her voice. I've been working here for 2 years, but I'm still considered junior because apparently I don't have the right profile for lead edits. What kind of profile? Well, let me show you something. Maya clicked through some files on her computer. These are some edits I made in my spare time, little documentaries about the local community. Quinn was impressed with the quality of the work. The editing was professional, dynamic, and emotionally engaging. Maya, this is incredible. Why aren't you editing the main programs? Because according to Mr. Scott, my style doesn't fit the program's editorial vision. Before Quinn could respond, a young African-American man, about 23 years old, entered the room carrying camera equipment. Maya, have you seen the new budget cut guidelines? He stopped when he saw Quinn. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you had company. Tyler, this is Quinn, Michael Jordan's niece. Quinn, this is Tyler Brooks, well, officially he's a camera assistant, but he's really doing the work of 3 people. Tyler seemed nervous upon hearing Jordan's name. Michael Jordan was here today? Yes, but he was dismissed by Mr. Scott, Quinn replied, observing Tyler's reaction. Tyler and Maya exchanged significant glances. That explains a lot, Tyler muttered. What do you mean? Quinn asked. Maya hesitated before answering. Tyler, do you think we should... Tyler glanced around again, then closed the editing room door. Look, I wouldn't normally talk about this with strangers, but you seem nice. And if your uncle is who I think he is... He took a deep breath. This place is in serious trouble. Quinn leaned forward, interested. What kind of trouble? Financial, Maya whispered. The program has been losing sponsors for months. Audiences have plummeted, and Mr. Scott is desperately trying to cut costs. He canceled 3 major interviews this week, Tyler added, all high-profile guests. He said it was due to scheduling conflicts, but the truth is he can't afford the production fees. Quinn was beginning to understand. So when he turned down my uncle, it probably wasn't personal, Maya finished. Well, not entirely. Mr. Scott has issues with some people, but mostly he's panicking because he knows if the show gets canceled, everyone here loses their job. At that moment, a third person entered the room. a Latina woman, about 30 years old, clearly exhausted. Maya Tyler, have you seen yesterday's viewership numbers? She stopped when she saw Quinn. Oh, sorry. Rachel, this is Quinn. Quinn, Rachel Martinez, our senior editor. Rachel offered a weary smile. Senior editor who works 2 jobs to make ends meet because this place pays peanuts. Rachel, Maya chided her. What? It's true. Rachel turned to Quinn. Sorry, I don't usually cut straight to the chase, but I'm running on 3 hours of sleep. Quinn was fascinated to hear the unvarnished truth behind the gilded facade of television. Why do you all keep working here if the conditions are so poor? The three exchanged glances before Tyler answered. Because we love what we do, and because we know we can do better. He gestured to the equipment surrounding them. We all have ideas, projects we'd like to develop, but we never get the chance. Mr. Scott has a very specific vision about who should be in front of the camera and who should be making the creative decisions, Maya added diplomatically. Rachel was more blunt. He's prejudiced and out of touch. Thinks television is still like the 80s. Quinn absorbed all this information, recalling the tension she'd observed between Grayson and Ashley. How long has the show been in trouble? About 6 months, Tyler replied, but it's rapidly getting worse. I heard the network is considering canceling the show at the end of this month if the numbers don't improve. And what would happen to you guys? We'd probably be fired, Maya said sadly. It's hard to find work in the field when you only have experience in junior positions. Quinn was beginning to form a clear picture of the situation. The Metro morning show was clearly floundering. Grayson Scott was desperate, and there was a talented staff being sidelined. May I ask one thing? Quinn said. If you could change one thing about this show, what would it be? Tyler answered first. To give a voice to people who don't normally have a platform on television. To produce content that actually matters to communities, Maya added, and to pay fair wages so people don't have to choose between pursuing their dreams and paying their bills. Rachel finished. Quinn smiled. She was starting to understand why her uncle had sent her to talk to the staff. Well, perhaps you have more of a chance than you think, she said cryptically. What do you mean? Maya asked. Let's just say my uncle isn't the type of person to take no as a final answer, especially when a good cause is involved. Before they could ask more, Quinn checked her watch. I need to find him now, but it was a pleasure meeting you both. I have a feeling we'll be seeing each other again soon. As Quinn exited the editing suite, Tyler turned to Maya. Do you think she was hinting at anything? Maya smiled hopefully. Hopefully, because if anyone can shake things up around here, it'd be Michael Jordan. Quinn found Jordan in the lobby exactly an hour later, as arranged. He was seated in one of the leather armchairs, seemingly relaxed, but she could tell his mind was at work. How was your field research? He asked as they walked out of the building. Highly illuminating, Quinn replied, and began recounting everything she discovered about Maya, Tyler, Rachel, and the program's financial straits. Jordan listened intently, nodding occasionally. Interesting. Very interesting. He stopped on the sidewalk. Quinn, would you mind waiting a few minutes? I have some calls to make. Quinn sat on a nearby bench as she watched her uncle make a series of phone calls. Even from a distance, she could tell the conversations were serious and strategic. 20 minutes later, Jordan returned with a determined look. Well, I know exactly what's going on here now. What did you find out? The Metro morning show isn't just in financial trouble, Quinn. It's on the brink of complete bankruptcy. Jordan sat beside her. I spoke with some contacts in the industry. The show lost its 3 biggest sponsors last quarter. Ratings have dropped 40% in the last 6 months. Quinn was taken aback. So Grayson Scott was really desperate. More than we imagined. Jordan glanced back at the building. Apparently, he has a personal contract that makes him financially liable if the show gets canceled. We're talking millions of dollars in personal debt. Wow, that explains why he was so on edge. It explains it, but it doesn't excuse how he treated me. Jordan stood up. Come on, let's take a stroll. I want to see more of this place. They walked around the building, observing the activity. Jordan noticed how the employee parking lot was rather sparse for a normal workday. Uncle Mike, may I ask something? Quinn inquired as they walked. Of course. Why do you really want to do this interview? I mean, you're already famous enough. You don't need the publicity. Jordan chuckled. Good question. He stopped and looked at her. A few weeks ago, I received a letter from a 16-year-old kid in Detroit. He said he wanted to drop out of school because he felt there were no opportunities for people like him. He said he watched television and never saw anyone he identified with, never saw his stories told. Quinn listened intently. It made me think about how many talented young people are out there who never get a chance to shine because they don't fit the mold the mainstream media expects. Jordan gestured toward the building. I thought a primetime interview could be a good platform to talk about that. And now? Now I'm thinking maybe one interview isn't enough. Maybe it's time to do something bigger. Before Quinn could ask what he meant, his phone rang. Jordan speaking? He listened for a few moments, then smiled. Perfect. Can you schedule it for tomorrow at 2 o'clock? Yes, his office. He hung up and turned to Quinn. I just scheduled a meeting with the network president. Seriously? For what? To pitch something he won't be able to refuse. Quinn felt a surge of excitement. What kind of pitch? Jordan smiled enigmatically. The kind that could transform this place into something entirely different. Something that's never been done before on American television. Just then, Maya Chen emerged from the employee entrance, clearly finishing her shift. She spotted them and gave a shy wave. Mr. Jordan, I didn't expect to see you still here. Maya, right? Jordan approached. Quinn told me about your work. I'd love to see some of your personal projects. Maya looked visibly surprised and thrilled. Really? I have some files in my digital portfolio. How about we meet tomorrow? You, Tyler, and Rachel. I'd like to talk with you all about some ideas. About what kind of ideas? Maya asked, hardly believing what she was hearing. About shaping the future of television. Jordan handed her a business card. Call me tomorrow morning, and Maya, bring all the ideas you've always wanted to bring to fruition, but never had the opportunity. As Maya walked away, clearly moved, Quinn looked at her uncle with growing admiration. You already know what you're going to propose, don't you? I have a few ideas. Jordan glanced once more at the studio building. Quinn, do you believe that sometimes things happen for a reason? What do you mean? I mean, perhaps me being rejected today wasn't an accident. Perhaps it was an opportunity to do something much bigger than a simple interview. Quinn smiled. You're planning something revolutionary, aren't you? Let's just say I'm thinking of giving some very talented people the chance they deserve, and perhaps in the process, showing the television industry how things should be done. As they walked back to the car, Quinn couldn't contain her curiosity. Uncle Mike, be honest with me. What are you really planning? Jordan paused, looking at her with that familiar competitive glint in his eye. I'm planning on teaching Grace and Scott and this industry a lesson about what happens when you underestimate the right people. The following morning, Jordan and Quinn met Maya, Tyler, and Rachel at a cafe near the studio. The place was cozy, with rustic wooden tables and the aroma of freshly roasted coffee lingering in the air. The three young people arrived punctually, but were visibly nervous. Thanks for coming, Jordan said as everyone settled in. Before we discuss the future, I'd like to get to know you all better. Tell me your stories. Maya was the first to speak, fidgeting with her coffee cup. Well, I graduated from New York University with honors in film production. During college, I won 3 student awards for documentaries about Asian American communities. She hesitated. When I got the job at the Metro Morning Show, I thought I'd finally have the chance to produce meaningful content. And what happened? Jordan asked gently. For the first 6 months, I pitched 12 different segments about cultural diversity, youth entrepreneurship, inspiring immigrant stories. They were all rejected. Maya sighed. Mr. Scott always said they were too niche, or not right for our core demographic. Tyler nodded, clearly relating to the experience. My story's similar. I grew up in the Bronx, the son of a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep me in school. I always dreamed of telling stories that showed the reality of urban communities, not just the stereotypes the media loves to perpetuate. Tell me more, Jordan encouraged. I studied film at community college, then got a partial scholarship to finish my degree. When I started the studio, I thought it would be my big break. Tyler gave a bitter laugh. 2 years later, I'm still lugging equipment and doing assistant work, while watching opportunities go to people with half my talent, but the right connections. Rachel, who had remained quiet, finally spoke. I'm 31. I've been in television for 8 years. I started as an unpaid intern, then an assistant, then a junior editor, now a senior editor. She paused, visibly emotional. I have 2 young daughters at home. I work here during the day and do freelance editing at night to make ends meet. Quinn leaned forward, touched by Rachel's candor. That must be incredibly difficult. It is. But you know what's more frustrating? Rachel looked directly at Jordan. I know I can do a better job than most senior producers. I have the ideas, I have the skills, I have the experience. But I've never gotten a real opportunity because apparently I don't have the leadership profile they're looking for. Jordan processed this information carefully. What kind of profile are they looking for? The three exchanged glances before Maya responded diplomatically. Well, let's just say diversity isn't exactly a priority in decision-making positions. Tyler was more blunt. Mr. Jordan, in the 2 years I've worked there, I've never seen a Black, Latino, or Asian person in an executive producer or creative director role. And when we've questioned it, there are always excuses about experience or cultural fit. Jordan nodded, his expression growing more serious. And you believe this happens only on the Metro Morning Show? No, it's systemic, Rachel replied. I talked to colleagues at other studios. It's the same pattern everywhere. Entry-level positions are diverse, but the higher you climb the ladder, the less diversity there is. Quinn, who had been listening intently, posed a question. If you could create your own show, what would it be like? Maya's eyes lit up immediately. It would be a show that showcased real stories from real people. Not just celebrities or politicians, but young entrepreneurs, artists from marginalized communities, innovators who are changing their realities. Tyler chimed in enthusiastically. And it would be visually dynamic. We'd use cutting-edge technology, augmented reality, editing techniques that would capture young audiences' attention. None of that stale, traditional interview format, Rachel added with fervor. And it would have real social impact. Each episode would highlight a cause or organization that viewers could support. We'd turn passive viewers into active community participants. Jordan smiled, seeing the genuine passion in their eyes. And you think you could get an audience with that kind of content? Absolutely, Maya responded without hesitation. Young audiences are starving for authentic content. They connect more with YouTube and TikTok influencers than with traditional television because they feel those people are real. The problem is, nobody gives us a chance to prove that, Tyler added, frustrated. Jordan was silent for a few moments, clearly contemplating. Finally, he leaned forward. What if I told you that chance might be closer than you think? The three of them looked at him with growing curiosity and hope. What do you mean? Rachel asked. I mean, it might be time to show the television industry there's a better way of doing things. Jordan paused, watching their reactions. But first I need to know, would you be willing to risk your current jobs for an opportunity to create something truly groundbreaking? Maya, Tyler, and Rachel exchanged glances. Quinn could see the silent communication between them, a mixture of excitement, nervousness, and determination. Mr. Jordan, Maya said slowly, if you're talking about a real opportunity to make a difference, to tell the stories that matter, then yes, we'd be willing to risk it. Tyler nodded vigorously. I'm 23. If I don't take a risk now, when will I? Rachel thought longer, clearly considering her family responsibilities. I have daughters to support, she said finally, but I also want them to grow up in a world where people like us have a voice and real opportunities. So yes, I'm in. Jordan smiled broadly. Perfect, because in 2 hours, I'm meeting with the network president to pitch something that's never been done before in American television. What exactly? Quinn asked, barely able to contain his curiosity. Jordan looked at each of them before answering. I'm going to pitch the creation of the first primetime television show entirely directed and produced by young people from marginalized communities. With a real budget, professional resources, and complete creative autonomy. The silence at the table was absolute for a few seconds. Are you serious? Tyler finally managed to ask. Completely serious, Jordan checked his watch. And you three would be the executive producers. Maya nearly dropped her coffee cup. That, that would be incredible. But why would the network agree to something like this? Jordan smiled mysteriously. Because sometimes when you have the right influence and a revolutionary idea, you can forge opportunities where none previously existed. He stood, leaving money on the table. I need to get to my meeting now. You have the rest of the day to mull over everything we've discussed here. He handed out business cards to each of them. If everything goes as I hope, we'll be working together very soon. As Jordan and Quinn exited the coffee shop, the three young people sat in silence, processing what had just transpired. Do you think he can actually pull this off? Rachel asked. Maya smiled hopefully. It's Michael Jordan. If anyone can shake up the system, it's him. Tyler shook his head in awe. Man, our lives might be about to change completely. The network president's office was situated on the 40th floor of a midtown Manhattan skyscraper. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular city view, and the walls were adorned with posters of famous shows and industry awards. Sarah Mitchell, who had helmed the network for 7 years, greeted Jordan and Quinn with a professional smile, but there was genuine curiosity in her eyes. Sarah was a formidable woman in her 50s, known for her sharp business acumen and her willingness to take calculated risks. Mr. Jordan, it's an honor to have you, Sarah said, gesturing to the leather armchairs opposite her desk. I must admit, I was intrigued when I heard you wanted to meet with me following yesterday's incident on the Metro Morning Show. Jordan settled back comfortably, maintaining his confident posture. Ms. Mitchell, thank you for seeing me on such short notice. And yes, what happened yesterday was revealing, but perhaps not in the way you might imagine. Sarah raised an eyebrow. In what way? Well, let's just say the rejection provided me with a unique perspective on some challenges your network is facing. Jordan leaned forward slightly. Challenges that may be costing you millions in lost viewership. Sarah's expression grew more serious. As a seasoned executive, she recognized when someone possessed valuable intelligence. I'm listening. Ms. Mitchell, may I ask what the Metro Morning Show's viewership was last quarter? Sarah hesitated for a moment, then answered frankly. It dropped 38%. We lost 3 major sponsors, and we're considering canceling the show if the numbers don't improve drastically. And you know why the numbers are dropping. Frankly, the younger audience just doesn't connect with the traditional format anymore. They want more authentic content, more diversity, more relevance to their realities. Jordan nodded. Precisely. And what if I told you I have a solution that could not only save the Metro Morning Show, but transform it into the most innovative and successful program on American television? Sarah leaned back in her chair, clearly intrigued. I'm all ears. Jordan took a deep breath, ready to lay out his game-changing proposal. I want to propose the creation of the first primetime television program entirely directed and operated by young people from marginalized communities. I'm not talking about a superficial refresh or adding a few diverse faces. I'm talking about a complete shift in creative power. The silence in the office was palpable. Sarah processed the proposal for a few seconds. Go on. Imagine a show where talented young people like Maya Chen, Tyler Brooks, and Rachel Martinez aren't just employees, but executive producers with total creative autonomy. Jordan gestured enthusiastically. A show that covers stories no one else is telling, using innovative visual techniques that resonate with a younger audience. Quinn watched the conversation, fascinated, seeing her uncle present a vision that was clearly far grander than she had imagined. Mr. Jordan, Sarah said carefully, this is certainly ambitious, but how do you guarantee it would work? Television is a complicated business. It's precisely because it's complicated that we need a fresh approach, Jordan said, rising and beginning to pace the office. Ms. Mitchell, do you know the fundamental problem with traditional television today? Tell me. You're trying to create content for an audience that doesn't see itself represented by those making the creative decisions. Jordan stopped by the window looking out at the city. 40% of the American population is made up of ethnic minorities. 70% of streaming audiences are under 35. But how many of your executive producers and creative directors come from those groups? Sarah didn't answer, but her expression betrayed that she knew the answer. So your proposal is essentially to hand over creative control to people with no executive experience? She asked, testing the idea. My proposal is to provide genuine opportunities for individuals with proven talent who have never had the chance to showcase their capabilities. Jordan returned to his seat. And to ensure its success, I am prepared to make a significant personal investment. What sort of investment? Jordan smiled. I'm prepared to co-finance the program for the first 6 months. We'll cover all production costs, salaries, and marketing. The network would incur no financial risk whatsoever. Sarah was visibly taken aback. You're talking about millions of dollars. I'm talking about a revolution. Jordan leaned forward again. Ms. Mitchell, imagine the positive publicity. Imagine being the first network to truly democratize television content creation. Imagine audience loyalty when they realize they finally have a show that speaks to them, not at them. Quinn could see Sarah genuinely contemplating the offer. And where would Grayson Scott fit into this new structure? Sarah inquired. Ah, yes, Grayson. Jordan smiled in a way Quinn recognized as dangerous. He would have a pivotal role in the new format, which would be mentor, transition supervisor. Essentially, he would work directly with the new executive producers to ensure they have all the necessary technical and institutional support. Jordan paused strategically. Naturally, it would be a supportive role, not an oversight one. Sarah immediately grasped the implications. You're proposing that Grayson, who is currently the lead executive producer, becomes subordinate to the very young individuals he currently supervises? I'm proposing he be given the chance to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. Jordan maintained his diplomatic tone. Obviously, it would be a transition, but consider the benefits. Grayson possesses invaluable institutional knowledge. The young producers have creative energy and a connection with the modern audience. Together, they can create something extraordinary. Quinn admired the way his uncle presented the idea. Instead of sounding like a punishment, it sounded like a growth opportunity. Sarah remained silent for several minutes, clearly weighing every facet of the proposal. Mr. Jordan, this is undoubtedly the most radical proposal I've ever received. She rose and walked toward the window. But I must admit, it is also among the most intriguing. What would be your primary concern? Jordan asked. Frankly, the industry's reaction. We're talking about a paradigm shift. Some might see this as a publicity stunt rather than a legitimate innovation. And what if the results speak for themselves? Jordan suggested. What if, in 3 months, the viewership numbers triple? What if sponsors start lining up to advertise on the show? Are you that confident it will work? Jordan smiled confidently. Ms. Mitchell, I've spent my entire life betting on underrated talent. I'm rarely disappointed. Sarah returned to her desk and grabbed a notepad. Let's talk practicalities. How exactly would this transition work? Phase 1. We publicly announced the restructuring as a groundbreaking diversity and inclusion initiative. Grayson remains as senior consultant, but Maya, Tyler, and Rachel step up as executive producers. Jordan began ticking off on his fingers. Phase 2. We gradually implement the new format over 4 weeks. Phase 3. We assess the results and, if successful, expand the model to other network programs. And Grayson would agree to this? Jordan chuckled softly. Let's just say he'll be in a position where agreeing is his best option. Quinn realized there was something her uncle hadn't fully disclosed yet. Is there anything else I should know? Sarah asked, displaying the shrewdness that had propelled her to the industry's apex. Well, there's a small matter concerning the Metro Morning Show's current financial standing that might make this proposal even more appealing to you. Sarah tensed slightly. What do you know about our financial situation? I know you're considering canceling the show due to losses. I know Grayson has personal contractual liability for performance, and I know you need a solution that works fast. Sarah was impressed by the depth of Jordan's intel. How did you discover this? Let's just say when you're rebuffed so abruptly, you naturally become curious about the real reasons. Jordan maintained his light tone. But that's irrelevant. What matters is that my proposal solves all these problems simultaneously. Sarah sat down and began jotting notes. I'll need to discuss this with the board, but I must admit it's fascinating. She looked at Jordan. Assuming we approve the idea, when would you like to start? Monday. This Monday? That's 3 days from now. Mrs. Mitchell, revolutionary changes demand decisive action. The longer we wait, the more time we grant for resistance to organize. Sarah shook her head, chuckling nervously. You don't do anything by halves, do you? I've never seen the point in doing things partially when you can do them completely. Quinn observed the dynamic between the two executives, impressed by her uncle's negotiating prowess. I'll need 24 hours to consult with the board and legal counsel, Sarah finally said. But assuming we can iron out the legalities, you'd have my backing to give it a go. Jordan stood and extended his hand. Mrs. Mitchell, you won't regret this decision. As they shook hands, Sarah smiled. Mr. Jordan, I have a feeling you've just forever changed the way we do television. I hope so, Jordan replied. That was precisely the intent. Monday morning, the Metro Morning Show studio felt like an entirely different locale. News cameras were stationed outside, reporters were conducting live broadcasts, and an air of anticipation hung in the atmosphere. Inside the building, an extraordinary meeting was underway in the main conference room. All program staff were present, along with several network executives, Jordan, Quinn, and, to everyone's general surprise, Maya, Tyler, and Rachel seated at the head table. Grayson Scott was at the far end of the table, visibly tense. He had only been briefed on the changes the previous evening and was still processing what was transpired. Sarah Mitchell opened the meeting. Good morning, everyone. I know many of you are surprised by this urgent gathering, so I will be direct. She paused, looking around the room. Effective today, the Metro Morning Show is undergoing a complete restructuring. Murmurs rippled through the room. Maya Chen, Tyler Brooks, and Rachel Martinez have been promoted to executive producers and will have full creative authority over the program's new format. The silence was broken by whispers of shock and confusion. Ashley, the red-haired assistant, timidly raised her hand. Mrs. Mitchell, what about Mr. Scott? Grayson will remain with us as a senior consultant and mentor, working directly with the new executive production team to ensure a smooth transition. All eyes turned to Grayson, who forced a strained smile. I'm eager to work in this new capacity, he said, his voice clearly forced. Jordan rose to speak. I realize this is a significant and unexpected shift for everyone, but I want you to understand that we are not here to dismantle what you've built. We are here to elevate everything to a new level. Maya, still visibly apprehensive about her new role, stood as well. We want to make it clear that we value the experience and expertise of everyone in this room. This transformation will only succeed if we collaborate. Tyler added, our aim is to create a program that is more dynamic, more inclusive, and more relevant to the modern audience. But we need you to achieve that. Rachel, ever pragmatic, was more specific. Over the next 2 weeks, we will be phasing in the new format. We'll begin with short segments within the existing structure, then expand as we gain confidence and proficiency. After the all-hands meeting, Sarah requested a private word with Grayson. Jordan, Quinn, and the 3 new executive producers waited in an adjacent room. How do you think he's taking it? Quinn inquired. Maya sighed. Honestly, I think he's in shock. 2 days ago, I was his subordinate. Now I'm technically his supervisor. This is going to be awkward for all of us, Tyler admitted, but it's also exciting. Rachel was more cautious. We need to prove we deserve this opportunity. All eyes are on us now. Jordan nodded. That's precisely why you're going to excel. You understand the responsibility. 15 minutes later, Sarah and Grayson returned. Grayson appeared calmer, but still clearly unsettled. Grayson has some legitimate concerns about the transition, Sarah announced, but we've agreed that we will work together to address them. Grayson addressed Maya directly. Maya, do you have any specific ideas for the initial segments? Maya took a deep breath, clearly recognizing this as a pivotal moment. Actually, yes. Tyler and I worked over the weekend on some proposals. She opened her laptop. We'd like to launch with a series called Invisible Voices, profiles of young entrepreneurs and artists from marginalized communities who are making a difference in their fields. Tyler continued, "We would use a more dynamic visual approach. Less studio, more on location. More movement, more energy. Something that grabs the attention of a younger audience from the very first second." Grayson listened intently, then inquired, "And how do you intend to maintain journalistic integrity?" "We cannot sacrifice credibility for style," Rachel responded. "That's a valid concern. We aim to uphold high journalistic standards, but present information in a more accessible and engaging manner. Less unnecessary formality, more authentic conversations." To everyone's surprise, Grayson nodded thoughtfully. "That actually makes sense. Our research indicates that younger audiences value authenticity over formality." Jordan observed the interaction with interest. Perhaps the transition could be smoother than he had anticipated. In the ensuing days, the transformation was gradual yet discernible. The inaugural Invisible Voices segment featured a young Latina entrepreneur who had established an educational technology startup within her community. Tyler filmed the profile with an entirely new visual dynamism, employing drones, mobile cameras, and brisk editing that Rachel orchestrated brilliantly. The audience response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Online viewership numbers tripled within 48 hours. Social media comments lauded the program's fresh energy and authenticity. By the end of the first week, Sarah convened a review meeting. "Preliminary numbers are exceptional," she announced with a smile. "We've seen a 45% surge in younger viewership, and sponsors are reaching out, inquiring about advertising opportunities." Maya, Tyler, and Rachel exchanged glances of elation and relief. "More importantly," Sarah continued, "critical reception has been overwhelmingly positive. 3 industry publications have already run articles commending our innovative approach to media democratization." Grayson, who had remained largely silent throughout the meeting, finally spoke. "I must admit I was skeptical, but the results speak for themselves." He looked directly at Maya. "Your team's work has been exemplary." It was the first time he had publicly acknowledged the new team's success. Jordan rose. "This is merely the genesis. In the coming weeks, we will expand the new format to encompass the entire program. And if the results remain favorable, the network is considering applying this model to other shows." Quinn, who had witnessed the entire transformation, smiled proudly at her uncle. He had achieved what seemed impossible, not merely opening doors for young talent, but doing so in a way that benefited everyone involved. "There's one more thing," Jordan added. "We've received interest from 3 universities that want to study our model as a case study in their communication programs. And 2 other networks have already reached out, inquiring about consulting to implement similar approaches." The energy in the room was palpable. What had begun as a humiliating rejection had blossomed into a revolution, gaining national attention. But Jordan knew the true test was yet to come. Structural changes often met resistance as they gained visibility, and he had a feeling not everyone would be pleased with the success they were achieving. 3 weeks after the new format's implementation, the Metro Morning Show had become the most talked-about morning television program in the country. Ratings had more than doubled, sponsors vied for advertising slots, and articles in major publications discussed the television revolution that was unfolding. But not all the attention was positive. It was a Thursday morning when Jordan arrived at the studio to find a small crowd gathered outside the building. There were signs, reporters, and a protester's energy in the air. Quinn was with him and immediately tensed. "Uncle Mike, what's going on?" Before Jordan could respond, a well-dressed young African-American man approached them. He looked to be around 28, with a confident yet visibly annoyed demeanor. "Mr. Jordan, I'm Devin Thompson. I need to speak with you." Jordan recognized the name immediately. Devin was an up-and-coming anchor who had worked at the Metro Morning Show 2 years prior. "Devin, of course. How can I help you? Can you explain to me why you're giving Grayson Scott a second chance?" Devin asked directly, his voice laced with emotion. The question caught Jordan off guard. "I don't understand. Can you be more specific?" Devin gestured to the group of people behind him. "We are former employees of the Metro Morning Show. We were all discriminated against, humiliated, or unfairly dismissed by Grayson Scott over the years." His voice rose. "And now we discover he's not only keeping his job, but being lauded as part of an inspiring transformation?" Jordan surveyed the assembled group, recognizing familiar faces from his initial studio investigation. A Latina woman in her mid-30s approached. "Mr. Jordan, I'm Reagan Lopez," she said with a wry smile. "I'm an attorney and I represent numerous individuals who have been victims of systematic discrimination by Grayson Scott." Quinn moved closer to her uncle, sensing the rising tension. "Jennifer, Devon, I understand your concerns," Jordan said carefully. "But perhaps we could discuss this in a more private setting?" "No," Devon replied firmly. "Private discussions are how these injustices continue to be swept under the rug. We want public answers." At this moment, several reporters covering the protest converged, cameras and microphones at the ready. "Mr. Jordan, what is your response to allegations that you are protecting an executive with a history of discrimination?" a reporter inquired. Jordan realized he was facing a public relations crisis that could derail everything he had painstakingly built over the past few weeks. "I would like to address these important concerns," he stated calmly. "But first, I'd like to hear specifically what the allegations are." Jennifer opened a folder and began to read. "Devon Thompson, terminated after questioning why none of the lead anchors were people of color. Official reason, budget cuts," she continued. "Maria Santos, an editor who was demoted after proposing segments on Latino communities. Carlos Rivera, a cameraman reassigned to the overnight shift after complaining about racist remarks." The list continued for several minutes. Quinn was visibly stunned by the catalog of discrimination. "And there's more," Jennifer pressed on. "We have documented emails, recorded meetings, eyewitness testimonies. Grayson Scott isn't just resistant to change. He is a systemic problem who has caused real harm to careers and lives." Devon addressed Jordan directly. "Mr. Jordan, you are an inspiration to millions, especially people who look like me." Her voice was thick with emotion. "So how can you justify giving a platform and a second chance to someone who systematically destroyed opportunities for people like us?" The question struck Jordan like a blow. He realized he had focused so much on the innovative solution that he might not have adequately considered the need for justice for past victims. Quinn watched her uncle process the situation. She could see the internal conflict in his expression. "Devon, Jennifer, you have every right to be angry," Jordan finally said, "and you deserve more specific answers than I can give you at this moment." "So what are you willing to do?" Jennifer asked. Jordan thought for a few moments, clearly weighing his options. "I am willing to do two things immediately. First, I want to hear in detail about each of your experiences, all of them. Second, I want to work with you to develop a process that ensures Grayson is held accountable for his past actions in a way that is fair to both you and the progress we are making." "And what if that means removing Grayson entirely?" Devon asked. This was the question Jordan had been trying to avoid, but he knew he had to face it. If the evidence shows there is no way for Grayson to be part of the solution in a manner that is fair to his victims, then yes, we will be willing to consider his complete removal. Jennifer and Devon exchanged glances, clearly not expecting this answer. "Are you serious?" Jennifer asked. "Completely serious." Jordan looked around at the group of former employees. "But I also want to propose something else. I want you to be part of the oversight process, not just as witnesses or victims, but as active participants in creating a system that ensures these issues never happen again." Devon frowned. "What exactly does that entail?" "It means that if you are willing, I would like to establish an oversight board comprised of former victims of discrimination, which would have the authority to monitor and evaluate not just Grayson, but the entire workplace environment at the studio." Quinn was impressed by how quickly her uncle had come up with a solution that could satisfy both the need for justice and the continuity of progress. "And this board would have real power?" Jennifer asked skeptically. "Real authority to investigate, recommend changes, and even recommend dismissals if necessary," Jordan confirmed. The group fell silent for a few moments, clearly processing the proposal. "Mr. Jordan," Devon said slowly, "this is more than we anticipated when we came here today. Sometimes when you're confronted with the truth, the only fitting response is an even more radical shift than you initially planned." Jennifer glanced at her clients, then back at Jordan. "We'll need to discuss this amongst ourselves, but it's an intriguing proposal." "Certainly. And while you deliberate, I'd like to invite you to tour the studio, meet the new team, see the changes we've implemented. Perhaps that will help you gauge whether we're on the right track or if we need more drastic corrections. As the group dispersed to discuss the proposal, Quinn approached her uncle. Uncle Mike, are you truly prepared to remove Grayson if necessary? Jordan sighed deeply. Quinn, one of the hardest things about trying to do what's right is realizing that sometimes your good intentions can perpetuate existing injustices. He looked toward the studio building. If I had to choose between protecting the progress we've made and ensuring justice for people who were genuinely wronged, justice has to come first. Quinn beamed proudly. That's why you're my hero. I'm not anyone's hero yet, Quinn. We still have a great deal of work ahead of us. A week after the confrontation with Grayson's previous victims, Jordan convened an extraordinary meeting that included everyone involved. The new executive production team, Grayson, Sarah Mitchell, the council of former victims, and several network executives. The tension in the conference room was palpable. Grayson was visibly nervous. Maya, Tyler, and Rachel looked concerned about their project's future. And Devin, Jennifer, and the other oversight board members maintained serious, determined expressions. Jordan opened the meeting with a statement no one expected. Over the past few weeks, I've learned that revolutionizing a system is more complicated than I initially imagined. He scanned the room. I've discovered it's possible to make significant progress and still perpetuate injustices, and that is unacceptable. Grayson shifted uncomfortably in his seat. So, after much deliberation and several difficult conversations, I want to introduce a new framework that I hope will be equitable for everyone involved. Sarah leaned forward, clearly curious about what Jordan had devised. First, I want to directly address Grayson's situation. Jordan turned to face him. Grayson, after reviewing the documentation presented by the Oversight Board and hearing the detailed testimonies of your victims, it is clear that you have caused real and significant damage to careers and lives. Grayson lowered his head, clearly bracing himself for dismissal. However, Jordan continued, I also believe in the possibility of genuine redemption and active accountability. So here is what will happen. He addressed Devin and Jennifer. The Oversight Board will have full authority to design and implement an accountability program for Grayson. This will include direct financial reparations to his victims, a supervised educational program on diversity and inclusion, and mandatory community service with organizations that support victims of workplace discrimination. Devin raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Furthermore, Jordan continued, Grayson will remain in the program, but his position will be redefined. He will no longer be a senior consultant. He will be a supervised apprentice, working directly under the supervision of the former Victims Council. Jennifer leaned forward. What kind of supervision? The council will have the authority to assess his progress, define his responsibilities, and even recommend his termination if he does not demonstrate genuine and consistent change. Grayson finally spoke, his voice hesitant. And if I agree to these terms? Jordan met his gaze directly. If you agree and demonstrate genuine change over the next 12 months, you would have the possibility of rebuilding your career in a way that truly honors the principles of inclusion and fairness. And if he does not demonstrate change, Devin asked, then he will be permanently removed, and the Oversight Board will have the authority to recommend further legal action if necessary. Rachel, who had remained quiet throughout the discussion, finally chimed in. How will this affect the program? Will we still be able to maintain the progress we've made? In fact, Jordan smiled, I believe this will strengthen the program. Having an active oversight board will ensure our transformation is not only groundbreaking, but also genuinely equitable. Maya added, and it means we'll have mentorship and guidance from people who truly understand the challenges we face as ethnic minority professionals in the industry. Tyler nodded enthusiastically. It's like having a system of checks and balances that ensures we won't repeat past mistakes. Sarah Mitchell, who had observed the entire discussion with growing interest, finally spoke. Mr. Jordan, this is an approach I've never seen implemented in the television industry. Essentially, you're creating a model of restorative justice in the workplace. Precisely, Jordan confirmed. Instead of simply punishing or ignoring the issue, we're creating a system that holds accountable, educates, and allows for genuine growth. Jennifer consulted her fellow board members for a few moments, then addressed the group. We've discussed this proposal extensively, and while it's different from what we initially envisioned, we recognize it's potentially more transformative. She looked directly at Grayson. But we want to be clear that our oversight will be rigorous. We will not tolerate superficial changes or disingenuous performances. Grayson took a deep breath before responding. I understand, and I accept the terms. His voice was shaky, but there was a note of sincerity that hadn't been present before. I also want to apologize publicly to everyone I've harmed. I know apologies don't undo damage, but I hope they can be the first step toward real amends. Devin studied him for a few moments. Grayson, I'm going to be blunt with you. I don't trust you yet, but I'm willing to give you a chance to prove that genuine change is possible. That's all I can ask for, Grayson replied, his tone humble. Jordan stood and walked to a large screen on the wall. Now, I want to show you how this new model will work in practice. He clicked to a presentation. The Oversight Board will convene weekly to assess Grayson's progress. They will also have the authority to review all hiring, promotion, and creative production decisions. Furthermore, Sarah added, the network is so impressed with the results of this model that we've decided to roll it out to 2 other shows as a pilot. Quinn, who had watched the entire discussion with fascination, finally spoke. Uncle Mike, does this mean you're setting a new standard for the entire industry? We certainly hope so, Quinn. If we can demonstrate that it's possible to achieve commercial success and social equity simultaneously, perhaps other networks will follow suit. Maya turned to the Oversight Board. I'd like to propose that you also become official mentors for young, ethnically diverse professionals across the network. Your experiences and insights would be invaluable in helping the next generation navigate these challenges. Jennifer smiled. That's an excellent idea. Turning our experiences as victims into empowering tools for others. Tyler added enthusiastically. And we can document this entire process. Create a documentary about implementing restorative justice in corporate settings. Now you're thinking like true executive producers, Jordan chuckled, always looking for ways to turn experiences into valuable content. Sarah checked her watch. Well, we have a landmark decision to announce publicly. The press is waiting downstairs for a conference. As the group prepared to descend, Grayson approached Devin hesitantly. Devin, I know I have no right to ask this, but I hope we can eventually work together in a positive way. Devin studied him for a long moment. Grayson, actions speak louder than words. Show me real change over the next few months, and perhaps we can build something productive. That's all I can ask for, Grayson repeated, but this time with more determination in his voice. The press conference was a historic event. Reporters from national outlets were present, and the questions were intense yet respectful. Jordan, Maya, Tyler, Rachel, Devin, and Jennifer took turns explaining the new corporate restorative justice model they had developed. The reactions were immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Civil rights organizations praised the innovative approach. Business schools requested to study the model. Other television networks began inquiring about consulting. 6 months after the implementation of the new model, the Metro Morning Show had become a national phenomenon. The audience had tripled, the program had won 2 journalism awards, and more importantly, it had become a model studied in universities and implemented by companies across various sectors. Jordan and Quinn were visiting the studio on a spring morning, observing the live production of the show. The energy was completely different from 6 months prior. Diversity was visible not only in front of the cameras, but in all leadership positions. Maya was directing the flagship program with a confidence and professionalism that impressed even the most skeptical critics. Tyler had become director of visual innovation, creating filming techniques that other networks were copying. Rachel had been promoted to executive director of social content, overseeing a team of 12. How do you feel seeing all of this? Quinn asked her uncle as they watched through the control room glass. Proud, but also humbled, Jordan replied. I've learned that doing the right thing is more complicated than I initially thought. In the production room, they could see Grayson working quietly at a computer station, reviewing scripts under the supervision of Devin, who had become the chairman of the Oversight Board and a regular consultant for the program. How's the Grayson situation progressing? Quinn inquired. Better than I'd expected, honestly, Jordan observed Grayson respectfully interacting with a young assistant. The accountability program has been stringent, but he's responded well. Devin mentioned Grayson requested to participate in additional diversity training on his own accord. And the financial reparations? Paid in full. What's more, Grayson has established a scholarship fund for young journalists from ethnic minorities. Jordan smiled. Sometimes when you force someone to truly confront the harm they've caused, they find the motivation to do more than the bare minimum. At that moment, Reagan Lopez approached them. She had become the network's on-site workplace justice director, a position created specifically to oversee the implementation of the new model across other programs. Mr. Jordan Quinn, so good to see you, Jennifer greeted warmly. Are you here for the 6-month celebration? Wouldn't miss it for the world, Jordan replied. How are the other pilots doing? Exceedingly well. The late-night variety show has seen an 85% increase in viewership since we implemented the model. And the afternoon newscast is being studied by the Columbia Journalism School as an example of high-quality, inclusive journalism. Quinn was impressed. Does this mean you've changed the entire network? We're changing the entire industry, Jennifer corrected with a smile. We've had inquiries from 17 different networks, 23 entertainment companies, and even a few corporations outside of media who want to implement similar models. Jordan nodded with satisfaction. And the financials? Oh, that's the best part. Jennifer opened a tablet. The network has had its best financial quarter in 5 years. Turns out, doing the right thing is also good for business. As they spoke, Devin approached, clearly excited. Mr. Jordan, you need to see this. He held up his phone. We just got confirmation that Harvard Business School wants to create an entire course based on our corporate restorative justice model. And there's more, Jennifer added. Congress is considering legislation that would incentivize companies to adopt similar models through tax benefits. Quinn shook his head in admiration. Uncle Mike, do you realize you've changed far more than a television show? We changed, Quinn. All of us, together. Jordan looked around the bustling studio. I just lit the first spark. Maya, Tyler, Rachel, Devin, Jennifer, even Grayson. They all did the real work of building something better. Just then, Maya approached them during a commercial break. Mr. Jordan, can I steal you for a minute? There's something I want to show you. She led them to a wall that hadn't existed 6 months prior, a gallery of photographs and stories from the studio's employees, celebrating the diversity and achievements of the entire team. This was Rachel's idea, Maya explained. We want everyone who works here to feel that their stories matter and are valued. Jordan studied the photos. Young people of all ethnicities, varied socioeconomic backgrounds, tales of overcoming adversity and achieving success. At the center, a plaque bore a quote that made him smile. Sometimes the best revolutions start when someone says no to the right person. Did you guys put that up because of me? Jordan asked. Actually, that was Grayson's idea, Maya replied, surprising everyone. He said he wanted everyone to remember that sometimes being rejected can be the first step toward creating something better. Quinn looked at his uncle with evident pride. Uncle Mike, what did you learn from all this? Jordan paused for a moment before answering. I learned that real change requires more than good intentions. It requires humility to admit when you're wrong, courage to confront unjust systems, and wisdom to build solutions that honor both progress and fairness.